Yeah.
Okay.
That's the part I hate about this being on film.
Well, that's all right.
Just gone on with it.
It's just 6 minutes.
Yeah.
We're fine.
Okay, anytime. No questions.
Alright. Kamikaze pigeons, torpedo driving dogs, and bomb toting cats are all just a few of the ideas enthusiastic Americans had at the start of the Second World War. Hi, my name is Will Haffner. I'm a World War II weapons enthusiast, and today I'd like to talk about one of my personal favorite ideas of the Second World War, the Bat Bomb. Now, what was the Bat Bomb? Well, the Bat Bomb was a bomb loaded with bomb-laden bats developed by the U.S. as an attempt to make a more efficient incendiary bomb. Today we're going to talk about where this idea came from, how it worked, and what happened to it. Well, where did this idea come from? Start with that when you look at the inventor, Lytle S. Adams. Lytle S. Adams was a Pennsylvania dentist who was on vacation to New Mexico's Carlsbad Caverns, home to one of the largest bat populations in the United States. While he was there, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. This caused Dr. Adams to wonder if these millions of tiny furry creatures could somehow be used in order to help defeat this new enemy. He realized that they had one very useful characteristic, and that is that they like to roost in highly flammable places, such as attics and crawl spaces. He therefore wrote a proposal to the White House in which he suggested a plan to use bats to carry small incendiary devices to all the flammable nooks and crannies of Japanese houses. Now you may be wondering how such a ludicrous idea actually managed to get taken seriously, but as Alex C. Madrigal pointed out, Adams happened to know Eleanor Roosevelt. Thus, in Franklin Roosevelt's official memorandum on the proposal, he stated, "This man is not a nut." Thus, the project got moved on, and the National Research and Defense Committee started working on developing it into a working weapon. Now, of course, the first problem they faced was finding the right bat. 3 bats were considered for this: the mastiff bat, the mule-eared bat, and the free-tailed Mexican bat. The mastiff bat was by far the largest, with up to a 20-inch wingspan, capable of carrying up to about 1 pound of ordnance. But it was determined there was not enough of them for this project. The mule-eared bat was slightly smaller, only able to carry about 3 ounces, but they were deemed not hardy enough for the operation. So they were stuck with the Mexican free-tailed bat. It could only carry about 1 ounce, but they were more than hardy enough for the operation, and there was more than enough of them. According to batsintheattic.org, the largest Mexican free-tailed bat colony in the U.S. has over 20 million and is located in San Antonio, Texas. It was from these caverns that the bats were collected and loaded into a refrigerator truck to force them into hibernation. They were then sent to what is now Edwards Air Force Base and a testing facility. With the bats acquired, the next problem faced was the incendiary device. According to an article written by Robert Dorr, the device weighed less than an ounce and had a 10-inch flame which burned for 4 minutes. The device used gelled kerosene, an early version of napalm, and had a small time-delayed fuse to give the bats plenty of time to make it to the target area. The whole device was attached to the bat's chest skin using a small surgical clip. Now, with both the bats and the firebombs worked out, all that remained was to get the bats to the target area. The actual delivery system for the bats was by far one of the most interesting aspects of the whole plan, as detailed in Jack Cofer's book, The Bat Bomb. The Bat Bomb was made of a bunch of small cardboard cartons. Each of these cartons had individual cells, as you can see here. These cells each had a bat and its little bomb placed inside of it. They were then loosely tied together so that they formed shells when suspended. This whole thing was then stacked up and encased in this kind of bomb-looking thing here. They had a parachute in the back and a small timing device to let it know when to explode. When the bomb was dropped, the parachute would deploy about 1,000 feet above the ground. The bats would fall out of their cells onto the platform below, and as they fell, a pin would get pulled out of the incendiary device. The bats were then supposed to wake up, fly off of this into the surrounding buildings in the target area. Once they landed, they're supposed to chew through the little string that held the bomb onto them. That way it would stay in the building instead of having a bunch of black bats with little fiery things hanging onto them. But if they didn't, it was okay because the first few seconds would burn through the string and make sure the ordnance stayed in the building. Now I know this seems like a crazy idea, but it actually did work, as was evidenced when a few of the bats escaped from, a few armed bats escaped from their cages and accidentally burnt down a hangar. This did prove the idea, but it did run into a few other problems, like occasionally the bats didn't always wake up from hibernation in time in order to fly off the shells. But despite all this, every problem they ran into seemed to have a workable solution. Even though it looked promising, it was still scrapped in 1945 when the Navy found out it would not be operational until late 1945. Many authors agree that this is probably because they realized the atomic bomb was already going to be in use. Despite its never seeing service, Lyle S. Adams' Bat Bomb is still an interesting piece of history, and it causes one to wonder how the war would have ended if the last clouds of war had been made of bats instead of mushrooms. Thank you.
Good enough.
Good enough for that.